Well, speaking about this film, when you both started reading the script, and I wanted to find out from each of you what maybe stood out to you either about your character, the tone, or maybe the overall arcing themes. Was there anything that kind of uh, resonated with you?
Shall I go first? Um, I um, what I liked about it was that it wasn't the conventional journey through a monster apocalyptic, survival end of the world kind of story. Um, it's a very character driven journey story, and mainly is carried by just two people. Um, and I liked the challenge of that, and I liked the fact that when there's less people on screen and the story revolves around less characters, the responsibility you have to, really not just dig deep within your own character's psyche, but your the other character. And of course, this connection, the blood relation that we have as the character's father and daughter. And then you put us on the canvas of this end of the world situation where we're isolated and it's about survival. And I just thought that was a really interesting concept. And um, I was just excited. And of course, I did the screen test with Billy very early on. And I was just very excited about jumping into that world with her because I could see this amazing talent, and I knew from the second we met that there was a chemistry, and that often doesn't happen. So you have to find it, But I already knew that there was a spark there that we had, and I don't know where it comes from. Just sometimes you're lucky and you find it, and then everything else just falls into place, which it did.
I I'm on the same page. For me, when I'm reading it, what I really liked it was that it was just different to the normal, creatures are taking over the world and people are dying and blah blah. That's usually very action based. It's very, high blood pressure, and that is all you see. Is just that. It's just bang 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 bang, bang, and that's it. And you don't get a connection with the characters, and you don't get a connection of their lives outside of all of the drama that's happening. So what I really enjoyed was seeing how people live in worlds where creatures are or have taken over. Uh, I just don't think you see it much. Usually, the stuff that happens is, oh, 5 years later, this is where we are. But what happened in that 5 years? How did you survive? What was your day to day? You were stuck with your dad on an island for, well, I would think this was less than 5 years, but still, it was like a couple of years without your mom, and you don't know when you're going to see her again. She's off fighting. You don't know whether she's alive or not. And I just enjoyed seeing an actual relationship develop and change, and see how a kid, you know, reacts to being in a world like that before she has to take step into fighting, and before she has to pick up a sword, and before she has to do all that. How did life look? How do you go about that? What is a day to day without the creatures being present, because they're not always present? Um, so that's kind of what drove me towards it. And of course, when I did the chemistry read with Luke, I got very excited afterwards, because he's great. He's a good old chap. We have fun, so it was a little bit of an instant
That's a bit
connection.
old.
So it no, yeah, it was great.
I really like that it does offer that fresh lens, and it's not just like a father and it's like little children and he's always having to like sacrifice. It is about getting to see the younger lens as well, and learning to fight and stand up, and learning that type of rebellion as well, because often it's like little children and they're like so innocent, and the father and the mother, like protecting them. But this is another story about the daughter and her finding her power in that as well. That really I appreciated that as a woman.
Exactly.
We talk about a lot of this physicality parts of the film as, but you also talked and touched upon the emotionality of moments as well. That it's not always this high adrenaline fighting or learning or training and things like that. How did you kind of lean into and balance the emotional moments and beats that the film also provides through the drama?
Ah,
I mean, there's a lot of like in there's a lot of beautiful moments that Willa and Dad have together. In fact, we have, as you can imagine, you're isolated on this island. As far as you know, there are only you and me and you. That's it. And every day, it's the only conversations you will have is with each other. And there are some beautiful moments in it, which I think we both really enjoyed. Sitting around the fire or discovering strawberries in a garden that had died long ago, and telling the stories of the past, which of course my character is adamant that these stories stay alive. Um, and it's a nice thing. I mean, I come from a very small country called Wales, and I'm very proud of it. And I felt an affinity with this character about talking about my past and my life and what Wales means to me. And I felt like when I was telling these stories to Billy, it was felt the same. Like, keeping something alive is by telling the stories over and over and seeing them being absorbed by this this daughter of mine, and then hearing her tell the stories and what she picks up. And so yeah, it's we tried to make it as real as possible and as loving and as tragic and as beautiful as that situation could possibly be.
um, for me, the oh God, my character's got a lot of emotional moments in this film. And I think it's mainly because, she's at an age where everything's quite heightened and, she's in a scenario which is also heightened. So it's all that balance. But for me, I think going into it and going into all the emotional scenes, it's it really helped getting along with Luke. It honestly, people, sometimes you don't have that, and it's so taken for granted when you actually feel properly comfortable with someone to be able to break down cry for like 3 hours every day. It's it just makes it so much better, because if you don't have that comfortability, sometimes you just don't get it. It doesn't mean anything on the other person. Sometimes you just don't feel that comfortable. It's a lot harder to get into that emotional space and to that mindset. So genuinely being able and being comfortable with Luke and getting on with him helps so much with that. I felt safe, I felt that I actually felt like I could lean on him character wise in the scene, and it let me fully, you know, go into Willa's headspace and not think of it as like, okay, now I'm going to go into Willa's headspace and now Willa is going to cry. Instead of it was just like, okay, now I'm going to cry, you know? And it's because I had that comfortability. So it helped going into all of those scenes and just having Luke and all of that. And definitely on the last section of the film, when Luke goes and goes to fight the breakers and everything, you know, I have my scream at the end and all that. There's so many emotions involved, but of course, a big chunk of it was, well, seeing Luke, or envisioning Luke up there and doing what he was doing. So yeah, I think for me going into all of that, it just super helped having Luke around.